I'm Elizabeth Gearhart. I'm here with Karen Sammer. Karen had some issues and solved a huge problem in her life that a lot of us women have, and she is willing to help you solve it in your life too and tell you all about it. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so tell us what you did.
Well, back in 2009, I was diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer, and I had treatment for a year. And during that time, it was an awful, awful experience. I was very sick the entire time. But during that time, I did some research to find out what I could do to possibly not let this happen to me again. And what I determined was that processed sugar contributes very heavily to the development of cancer cells in your body.
And you lost a lot of weight.
I did. I lost 135 pounds. After what I did is I took my health into my own hands because I didn't really know how to go about, I've heard of all the programs and everything, but I was a long time commercial program follower and I was up and down all the time. But this time I really needed it to work so it would stay off. So I took matters into my own hands. And the first thing I did was I removed processed sugar from my diet. And that was a game changer for me because what it did is it got rid of cravings. It got rid of aches and pains. It made it so easy for me to then make healthy choices in my diet. And I did it incrementally. I removed things from my diet that weren't serving me. I first started with processed sugar. I moved on to meat. So I gave up meat for Lent one year and I just never went back. I then removed dairy. I removed gluten because gluten, while you may not have celiac disease, gluten can cause a host of problems in your body, and you don't necessarily know they're happening until you remove it from your diet and you realize how much better you feel. But these things I took out of my diet incrementally, and now I'm practically vegan. I will eat fish, but I don't eat any animal products other than fish. And it's not for anything philosophical and it's not ethical or anything like that. It's really about my health.
Right. And you have wonderful recipes on your website. I went.
Well, thank you.
So
Thank you.
if somebody works with you, say I need to lose 50 pounds and I need to eat more healthfully, what are some of the first things that you'll do with somebody that comes to you?
Well, I have a five-pronged approach when I work with people. We look at their mindset because a lot of people come to me after having tried multiple programs or multiple different iterations of the same program, and they've been successful temporarily and then they stop doing the program and they end up gaining back more than they lost. It's a yo-yo. We call that yo-yo dieting. I'm sure you've heard the term. So the first thing we do is we work on your mindset. And it's really, self-talk is such an important thing. And if we think we're going to be a failure at something, that's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. We will fail. So we work on the self-talk and the mindset around taking care of yourself. And all of these steps that I'm going to talk about are all kind of intermingled. I don't do step one, then step two, then step one. We just do everything at the same time. We also look at your lifestyle because stress is a major contributor to weight gain. It causes all kinds of chemical disturbances in your body that stay there even after the stress is gone, because as we go through our crazy US life, we are at high levels of stress all the time. And our bodies are not meant to deal with that. So we work on developing stress, ways to manage stress. We also look at your exercise patterns. We look at your sleep patterns because sleep is very important in maintaining a healthy weight. We talk about your water consumption. We talk about your community, who you associate with in your life, and who is supportive, who is not supportive. How can we work around those non-supportive individuals? And then, of course, we talk about the nutrition. And the nutrition, while it's a very important aspect of the program that I do, it's a small part of it, actually, because it's oftentimes we find as we delve into what's causing us to eat things that don't serve us is that it's very, very rarely about the food. It's what the food represents. It's what the food soothes. It's what the food anesthetizes. And so you really want to dig in and find out what can we do that what habits can we develop that will take the place of eating the foods that aren't serving us. And so we work on those.
That's really powerful. And how long have you kept that 135 pounds off?
Well, I started it during my treatment. My diagnosis was Christmas Eve 2009. So Merry Christmas to me. And yeah, that brought me to my knees. And then 2000, the whole year of 2010, a little bit into 2011, I was in treatment. So during that time, I was losing the weight. But I would say that by the beginning of 2011, I was probably at I can't even remember anymore. But so it's probably been 9 years that I've had it on. I've taken it. I took it off and kept it off.
That's hard to do, to keep it off.
Yeah.
So it really is a mind change. It really is. But you also have another volunteer thing that you do for women who are facing heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's correct. So I am a Women Heart Champion Community Educator. And Women Heart is the national coalition for women who are living with or at risk for developing heart disease. And it's the only organization that is strictly in support of women who are in this situation. And so what I do as a community educator is I go into the community and I speak to groups, usually women, but I want everybody to be there because there are people who know women who need to know this information. And I talk about our risk factors, our symptomology, what we can expect when we get into the medical system, especially if we don't fit the profile of somebody who might have a cardiac event. Mm-hmm. Women are 7 times more likely to be sent home from the hospital in the throes of a cardiac event, and sometimes to die. You know, they get home and something major happens and they don't make it. And this has happened time and time again, because even ourselves, we don't recognize the symptoms because our symptoms may not be as severe as what we expect them to be. It may be a pain in your neck. It may be severe fatigue. It may be a stomach ache, where men oftentimes will have that clutching pain in their chest, the pain down the arm, and we will have those as well sometimes, but that isn't always the case. So we may not recognize it, or we may just brush it off as a pulled muscle or something like that, and to our detriment. So, we're busy cooking dinner and taking care of the family and whatever, working our full-time job, whatever, our other full-time job, not our home full-time job, and whatever else is going on, and may dismiss it as whatever, exhaustion, pulled muscle, whatever we want to dismiss it as, and until it becomes something that just can't be ignored. And at that point, it may have done a lot of damage. So
right.
Really knowing.
Right. So what kind of training did you get to give these presentations?
So I went to the Mayo Clinic. I went to a science and something symposium at the Mayo Clinic, and they trained us on a lot of this information that I had no knowledge of. I was really surprised at some of the information that I learned, but I was even more surprised by the women who were in this group. There were 50 of us who came together. Every year they recruit 50 people to be Women Heart Champions. And some of these women had stories that would break your heart, because everybody who is a volunteer for Women Heart has a cardiac history of some sort, including myself. But some of these women's experiences, and very often women of color, seem to have even more dire experiences than Caucasian women do.
I believe that.
Absolutely. They are marginalized. They don't have access to the medical system that they need. It's just unbelievable. And then when they finally do get in, oftentimes they are dismissed as being not as seriously ill as they are. Right. Some of the stories that I heard, it's just amazing to me that these women are still alive.
Wow. So the purpose of your group is to educate, to stop people from dying, basically, from heart disease. So to educate what you need to do not to get it, and then to know the signs, right?
Absolutely. Well, 80% of heart disease is preventable.
So what kind of things do you talk about when you give these presentations?
I talk about the symptoms that we should look for. I talk about how to care for yourself, how to advocate for yourself, what to do to prevent heart disease or developing heart disease, those types of things. I give statistics about what happens around us, because a lot of people aren't even aware of some of this information. And some of the symptoms that we experience are not necessarily things that we would expect to be a symptom of cardiac disease.
So what if we do think we're having a heart attack and we go to the hospital and they tell us that we're hysterical women and just go home?
You insist on getting a heart workup, a cardiac workup. You want an EKG. You want the troponin levels checked. That's the chemical in your blood that is elevated when you're experiencing a cardiac event. And you don't let them dismiss you. Don't let them tell you that you're having a panic attack. If you know your body better than anybody. And so if you think there's something going on, chances are pretty good you're right. And the worst thing that can happen is that everything comes back normal. And if everything comes back normal, that's great. But
Right. And I had something happen and I had to go to the hospital and the emergency room just tried to poo-poo me. But luckily my main doctor, got on the phone with them and I don't know what she said to them, but they decided they would take care of me after they talked to her. So I think having your doctor advocate for you can be really helpful.
absolutely. And if you show up in the emergency room and you're seen by a female physician,
Mm-hmm.
your chances of survival go up exponentially, because women have a different way of they deal with the patient rather than just the symptoms. They deal with the entire, the whole thing. And that's for men or women. If you're seen by a female physician, you're much more likely to survive an event.
Wow, that's amazing. So it does seem like your heart work dovetails very nicely with your business where you're teaching people how to eat, how to change the mindset, really. Because if you change the mindset, you lose the weight, you're eating healthfully, then you're less likely to get the heart attack, right?
Absolutely. And you're also more likely to keep the weight off. You have to change your approach to yourself. You have to put yourself, you need to be at the top of your priority list. And as women, we are often we're not even a close second. We're way down at the bottom. We take care of everybody else and everything else before we take care of ourselves. So it's really important that we put ourselves as number one on the list. It sounds selfish, but it really isn't. What's selfish is allowing yourself to die unnecessarily because you were taking care of everybody else. You can't pour from an empty pitcher. So if you don't fulfill yourself, you don't take care of yourself, there's no way you're going to be able to support anybody else anyway. So it's a myth if you think that you're able to. You can't.
Right. So are you doing your presentations online somewhere now?
I am. I get in front of church groups. I get in front of women's groups. I've done a lot of, Zoom has been the best thing ever since COVID hit. And I can talk to anybody anywhere in the country. So for Women Heart, I can talk to anybody in the country because it's a US organization. For my work, I can talk to anybody in the world. And I'd be delighted to, work with anybody anywhere because we can do it. My work is all done remotely anyway. I meet very few people in person.
That's wonderful. So what's the best way to get a hold of you if somebody wanted to try to do a consultation?
If they go to my website, www.yourpoweryourhealth.com, they will find a link to my calendar and they can get on my calendar and get a free consultation.
Oh, that's nice. And then how often do you work with people? So is it a weekly consultation? Say someone hires you, do you talk to them weekly or as they need it, or how does that work?
I have a program that is a 6-month, I have a few programs. My best program is the 6-month program that I work with you weekly. So we meet the same time every week and we set that up in advance so everybody knows there are no surprises in the scheduling. And we try to keep to that schedule because it's really about consistency and commitment and being accountable to yourself. So we work together for 6 months. I also have a 3-month program where we would work together weekly. And I am in the process of developing a group program where we would work together as a group on Zoom. Once a week, we would just meet and I would do some laser focused coaching. And I'm putting together some videos that will be in support of this program. So
how many people would be in your group?
I would probably limit it to about 15. I want people to be able to ask their questions. I would keep, my goal is to keep the Zoom or the video discussion open as long as anybody has questions. So I can't have too many people because we'll be there 4 hours. So
right.
15 to 20 people, I think that would be my
Great. So is there anything else that we need to know about your business or your heart business, your heart volunteer work?
So my business is really focused on mostly on women, although I do work with men and young people, uh, women who are living with or at risk for developing not only heart disease but other chronic illnesses
Hmm.
that can be that can be managed through lifestyle and nutrition changes. So what we do is we work to prevent, which is actually the easiest thing to do. If we haven't prevented it, you're already in the disease state already. We work to reduce that and even possibly reverse it if we really are vigilant. I had one client who, she was a young woman. She was in danger of being prescribed a statin. She had cholesterol level of 260 and her triglycerides were off the charts and her HDL-LDL ratio was bad. So we worked together for 6 months. She brought her cholesterol numbers down 70 points, got all of her numbers in order, got her ratio fixed, got her triglycerides in the safety zone, and it was amazing. She felt better than she did before she started working with me, and she just was so happy that she was now out of the danger zone.
And did she need to lose weight? Did she lose weight?
She was not. So she was not overweight. She was very athletic. She was a beautiful young 20 something. And she did not, if you looked at her, you would think she was a picture of health. But she has the cholesterol, an overactive cholesterol producing body. But she needed to bring it down, in the medical model that we look at. They want to keep your cholesterol at 200 or below.
Hmm.
I had another client who's a man. He's diabetic with high blood pressure, and neither of those conditions were being controlled with medication. We worked together about 3 months, and he went back to his doctor, and his doctor said his numbers had never looked as good as they did that day. And he asked him what he was doing, and he told him he was working with me. So that the only difference in his life was his following my advice.
And if someone works with you and they don't follow your advice, then how do you punish them? I guess. How do you hold them?
Not punishment. It isn't about punishment. So one of the things, one of the aspects of what I do is I hold you accountable for what you want to. We set your goals, or you set your goals in the beginning. We talk about what you want to do, and we set 3 goals for the time that we're going to be together, and we work towards those goals. And when you don't fulfill your end of the bargain, then I will ask you about that, and I will try to give you tools. And sometimes people, life gets in the way, or I've heard every excuse in the book, but there's all kinds of things that cause people to derail themselves. And I try to get you back on the tracks, and it's sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Most times it does. I give you different ways to look at things. I give you different ways to think about what you're doing, maybe baby steps towards the right direction, rather than maybe I gave you too much that, more than you could digest. So we break it down into manageable chunks, but we managed to get you back on track.
So what if my husband and I both wanted to do it? Would we do it together with you, or would you counsel us separately?
My preference is to speak to you separately, only because your reason for losing weight may be different from his. You may want to discuss things that you're not comfortable talking about in front of each other. I certainly wouldn't want to talk about my weight in front of my husband, but although he sees me and he probably can figure out how,
My husband's looking. So,
well, mine is too, but it's all us, it's all in our head.
yeah.
But I would work with them separately. I think it works better to work separately because your issues are much different. Our bodies are different. We are not just men with uteruses. We are physiologically very different from men. We have hormonal fluctuations. We have all kinds of different other things going on in our bodies that men don't deal with.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to convince them of that sometimes. I know. So, well, this sounds wonderful. So, do you have certain days that you see your clients, or do you make appointments whenever they need to in the evening, or like only on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or how does that work?
I will see clients usually Monday through Friday. I try to stay away from the weekends, but if we need to schedule something on the weekend, I am not inflexible about that. I can do that. I just try to keep the weekends to for my own stuff. I have to do my own house things and family things. And so.
I try not to work on the weekends either, because otherwise it just eats your whole life up, right? So. Yeah. And
I
then,
love what I do, so it's not like work to me.
oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, I think that's the best part. You love what you do. And so I'm assuming since you've been there and seen a lot that you're very non-judgmental when people come to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will never judge you for slipping off the, falling off the rails or whatever you want to call it. I will never judge you for anything. And people tell me, come to our meetings, and they'll tell me, they ate a bag of chips or whatever it was that they ate, and they hear my voice in their head, or they joke around with their spouse. What would Karen say about this? They'll hold something up. Karen, like when they're in the grocery store. Would Karen approve of this? It would be like WWKD. What would Karen do? But it's kind of funny to hear those stories. I hear them all the time that people hear my voice, and I'll say something to them that really sticks. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who was a former client, and she one thing she told me when we worked together, she had leftover some kind of food that really wasn't going to serve her, but she felt the need to eat it because otherwise she'd have to throw it away. And my response to that is, you're not a garbage can. If it should be thrown in the garbage, then you probably should throw it in the garbage. You deserve better than that. There's no need for you to eat something just because it's otherwise going to be thrown away.
Yeah. I'll oftentimes freeze something and then throw it away.
Yeah, because then you can't identify it after a while, right?
Yeah. But no, that's, you know what? I love that because that is really changing the way your brain is processing this information.
Yeah.
So if you freeze it, it's like it's still good food. I got to eat it at some point. But if I'm not a garbage can, then let's put it where it belongs. So
Absolutely. You throw it in the garbage. It's not serving you. It isn't something that is going to benefit your body. Why do that to yourself? So it's just better to throw in the garbage.
awesome. So is there anything else we need to touch on?
No, just, if you're interested in a free consultation, please go to my website and click on the contact us, I believe is the name of the button, and it'll take you to my calendar. You get on my calendar, it'll ask you a few questions, and then it'll come to my phone and we'll set something up immediately. Well, it actually sets it up on my calendar. So it'll show up on my calendar, and I will be delighted to have a conversation with anybody who wants to do that.
Wonderful. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.